Good morning. Today's Bible reading comes from Exodus 15 through 17. Let's get into it. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to God, giving voice together. I'm singing my heart out to God. What a victory! He pitched horse and rider into the sea. God is my strength. God is my song. And yes, God is my salvation. This is the kind of God I have, and I'm telling the world. This is the God of my father. I'm spreading the news far and wide. God is a fighter, pure God, through and through. Pharaoh's chariots and army he dumped into the sea. The elite of his officers he drowned in the Red Sea. Wild ocean waters poured over them. They sank like a rock in the deep blue sea. Your strong right hand, God, shimmers with power. Your strong right hand shatters the enemy. In your mighty majesty, you smash your upstart enemies. You let loose your hot anger and burn them to a crisp. At a blast from your nostrils, the waters piled up. Tumbling streams dammed up. Wild oceans curled into a swamp. The enemy spoke, I'll pursue, I'll hunt them down. I'll divide up the plunder, I'll glut myself on them. I'll pull out my sword, my fist will send them reeling. You blew with all your might, and the sea covered them. They sank like a lead weight in the majestic waters. Who compares with you among gods, O God? Who compares with you in power, in holy majesty, in awesome praises, wonder-working God? You stretched out your right hand, and the earth swallowed them up. But the people you redeemed, you led in merciful love. You guided them under your protection to your holy pasture. When people heard, they were scared. Philistines writhed and trembled. Yes, even the headmen in Edom were shaken, and the big bosses in Moab. Everyone in Canaan panicked and fell faint. Dread and terror sent them reeling. Before your brandished right arm, they were struck dumb like a stone, until your people crossed over and entered. Oh God, until the people you made crossed over and entered, you brought them and planted them on the mountains of your heritage, the place where you live, the place you made, your sanctuary, Master, that you established with your own hands. Let God rule forever, for eternity. Yes, Pharaoh's horses and chariots and riders went into the sea, and God turned the waters back on them. But the Israelites walked on dry land right through the middle of the sea. Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine, and all the women followed her with tambourines. Dancing, Miriam led them in singing. Sing to God. What a victory! He pitched horse and rider into the sea. Moses led Israel from the Red Sea on to the wilderness of Shur. They traveled for 3 days through the wilderness without finding any water. They got to Marah, but they couldn't drink the water at Marah. It was bitter. That's why they called the place Marah, bitter. And the people complained to Moses, so what are we supposed to drink? So Moses cried out in prayer to God. God pointed him to a stick of wood. Moses threw it in the water, and the water turned sweet. That's the place where God set up rules and procedures. That's where he started testing them. God said, if you listen obediently to how God tells you to live in his presence, obeying his commandments and keeping all his laws, then I won't strike you with all the diseases that I inflicted on the Egyptians. I am God, your healer. They came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. They set up camp there by the water. On the 15th day of the second month after they had left Egypt, The whole company of Israel moved on from Elim to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. The whole company of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron there in the wilderness. The Israelites said, "Why didn't God let us die in the comfort in Egypt, where we had lamb stew and all the bread we could eat? You brought us out into this wilderness to starve to death." The whole company of Israel. God said to Moses, "I'm going to rain down bread from the skies for you. The people will go out and gather each day's ration. I'm going to test them to see if they'll live according to my teaching or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they have gathered, it will turn out to be twice as much as their daily ration." Moses and Aaron told the people of Israel, "This evening you will know that it is God who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of God." Yes, he's listened to your complaints against him. You haven't been complaining against us, you know, but against God. Moses said, "Since it will be God who gives you meat for your meal in the evening and your fill of bread in the morning, it's God who will have listened to your complaints against him." Who are we in all this? You haven't been complaining to us, you've been complaining to God. Moses instructed Aaron, "Tell the whole community of Israel, come near to God. He's heard your complaints." When Aaron gave out the instructions to the whole company of Israel, they turned to face the wilderness, and there it was, the glory of God visible in the cloud. God spoke to Moses, "I've listened to the complaints of the Israelites. Now tell them, at dusk you will eat meat, and at dawn you'll eat your fill of bread, and you'll realize that I am God, your God." The evening quail flew in and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew all over the camp. When the layer of dew had lifted, there on the wilderness ground was a fine flaky something, fine as frost on the ground. The Israelites took one look and said to one another, "Manna. What is it?" They had no idea what it was. So Moses told them, "It is the bread God has given you to eat, and these are God's instructions. Gather enough for each person, about 2 quarts per person. Gather enough for everyone in your tent." The people of Israel went to work and started gathering, some more, some less. But when they measured out what they had gathered, those who gathered more had no extra, and those who gathered less weren't short. Each person has gathered as much as was needed. Moses said to them, "Don't leave any of it until morning." But they didn't listen to Moses. Few of the men kept back some of it until morning. It got wormy and smelled bad, and Moses lost his temper with them. They gathered it every morning, each person according to need. Then the sun heated up and it melted. On the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, about 4 quarts per person. Then the leaders of the company came to Moses and reported. Moses said, "This is what God was talking about. Tomorrow is a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to God. Whatever you plan to bake, bake today. And whatever you plan to boil, boil today. Then set aside the leftovers until morning." They set aside what was left until morning, as Moses had commanded. It didn't smell bad. There were no worms in it. Moses said, "Now eat it. This is the day, a Sabbath for God. You won't find any of it on the ground today. Gather it every day for 6 days, but the 7th day is Sabbath, and there won't be any of it on the ground." On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather anyway, but they didn't find anything. God said to Moses, "How long are you going to disobey my commands and not to follow my instructions? Don't you see that God has given you the Sabbath? So on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days? So each of you stay home. Don't leave home on the 7th day." So the people quit working on the 7th day. The Israelites named it manna. What is it? It looks like coriander seed whitish, and it tasted like a cracker with honey. I don't know, that sounds good. Moses said, "This is God's command. Keep 2-quart jar of it, an omer, for future generations, so they can see the bread that I fed you in the wilderness after I brought you out of Egypt." Moses told Aaron, "Take a jar and fill it with 2 quarts of manna. Place it before God, keeping it safe for further generations." Aaron did what God commanded Moses. He set it aside before the testimony to preserve it. The Israelites ate the manna for 40 years until they arrived at the land where they would settle down. They ate manna until they reached the border into Canaan. According to ancient measurements, an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. Directed by God, the whole company of Israel moved on by stages from the wilderness of sin. They set camp at Rephidim, and there wasn't a drop of water for the people to drink. The people took Moses to task. "Give us water to drink." But Moses said, "Why pester me? Why are you testing God?" But the people were thirsty for water there. They complained to Moses, "Why did you take us from Egypt and drag us out here for our children and animals to die of thirst?" Moses cried out in prayer to God, "What can I do with these people? Any minute now they'll kill me." God said to Moses, "Go on out ahead of the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel. Take the staff you used to strike the Nile, and go. I'm going to be present before you there on the rock at Horeb. You are to strike the rock. Water will gush out of it, and the people will drink." Moses did what he said, with the elders of Israel right there watching. He named the place Massah, testing place, and Meribah, quarreling, because of the quarreling of the Israelites, because of their testing of God when they said, "Is God here with us or not?" Amalek came and fought Israel at Rephidim. Moses ordered Joshua, "Select some men for us and go out and fight Amalek. Tomorrow I will take my stand on top of the hill, holding God's staff." Joshua did what Moses ordered in order to fight Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. It turned out that whenever Moses raised his hands, Israel was winning, but whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek was winning. But Moses' hands got tired, so they got a stone and set it under him. He sat on it, and Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on each side, so his hands remained steady until the sun went down. Joshua defeated Amalek and its army in battle. God said to Moses, "Write this up as a reminder to Joshua, to keep it before him, because I will most certainly wipe the very memory of Amalek off the face of the earth." Moses built an altar and named it "God My Banner." It said, "Salute God's rule. God at war with Amalek, always and forever." And that is it for today's Bible reading. As always, get in touch with God today. I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.